Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers come together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I am joined by my brother in crime, a man so knowledgeable, it's as if he can see through time itself. A man truly willing to risk life and limb for the human race. My personal guardian of the galaxy, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
Thank you so much. I wanted to tell you it's a special treat and privilege to be here today.
It's been one of those weeks.
It's one of those weeks for me. So, hello and good evening. Thank you for the ovations and greetings and salutations.
Oh my God, he's going full English. What's going on?
Hello.
COVID has taken a toll. It is true. Andrus, it's good to see you. How are you?
Hi. I am here. That is how I am today.
Excellent.
How are you?
I'm here as well, and happy that there is nothing more being asked of us than just being here and talking about stuff.
Well, what a treat.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, we are here once again.
Yes.
We are here once again, gracing the presence of the interwebs with our, well-educated and completely non-biased opinions when it comes to movies, entertainment, and cool things to do with the videos and cinemas and all that kind of stuff. It is, as always, a pleasure and a privilege to have you here with me, Andrus, and such a pleasure to be speaking with everybody out there. Still, the 13 some odd people who are still following the YouTube channel going strong. It's
just like the original number, and it just they've forgotten about us and they've moved on. But we're gonna get a 14th, and that'll be
like it isn't for like the first 13 that were there. We're gonna get that one new person. They're gonna go and listen to like the hours of podcasting that we put into the void. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Abandoned us.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost as if if we had to find an analogy for the collection of videos that we have on YouTube right now, one may call it a time capsule, maybe. We have the capability of, through the technology, through the wondrous capabilities of us being able to provide our opinions about certain movies and points of entertainment from the beginning to now, how we may be able to, look into the past, travel through time, and maybe make decisions in regards to how we could affect the future. It's all one big tomorrow war. No, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, sorry, I just totally ruined it.
You're fine.
I said thing right over.
It's a great thing.
Over.
Oh, well, let's go to the preview.
Okay, none of you are my child. Has anyone seen Miri? Aww.
We are fighting a war 30 years in the future.
Is this a joke?
Our enemy is not human. We need you to fight.
I got drafted.
I will be back.
Why is this happening? What about the teachers' deferment and the veterans' deferment?
If I don't go, they're going to draft you in my place. But if something does happen to me, you and Miri will be taken care of.
If something happens to you, Dan, 70% of draftees do not return.
Sometimes a man does what's best for his family, not himself.
Move your shirt, please.
Wait, what is this for?
It's just a test.
Oh, a seatbelt. Was it a driving test? No? You don't have jokes in the future?
This device facilitates your jump to and from the future war.
1 minute to jump.
Oh, here, buddy. Take that. You just look around like that.
How are you so calm?
Long story.
You ex-military?
Yeah. Kind of a short story, I guess.
3, 2, 1. In 11 months' time, all human beings in the future will be wiped from the face of the earth. unless you help us.
I was trying to save my daughter. If I gotta save the world to save her, then I'm gonna do it.
This is the end. The human species will disappear from the face of the earth. We are literally living on borrowed time.
There's still a chance that we can stop this war from ever happening. So we gotta fight.
Well, it's nice knowing you.
So in case you guys were wondering what we were talking about in this episode, hopefully showing you the preview for it has able to take every bit of doubt out of your mind. Of course, Andrus and I will be looking at the time-traveling phenomenon, the apparently, as of the date of this recording, the #1 streamed movie in all households of America today, The Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt, Yvonne Strahovski, and Mr. J.K. Simmons, as well as many others, including Betty Gilpin, who I'm a huge fan of. And, well, actually, all of them, actually. Sam Richardson, Jasmine Matthews, Evan Hodge. We'll get into it. This is by far one of the most interesting bits of production that I want to talk with you about, Andrus, because we've kind of been teasing a little bit here and there with certain points of production. I am 90% sure, and I have been wrong before, but I think this might be legitimately the real first movie that was produced specifically during 2019 going into 2020, dealing with the different challenges that productions had to go through with COVID at 100%, which will be interesting to talk with you about. But also, this is a summer blockbuster, really. This is one of the first slew of titles that we've seen with this quarter. It is the big production season and release season for movies now. As of the date of this recording, we are into the midpoint of spring, going into summer. And if it wasn't for the plague, people would be just coming up into theaters, enjoying their popcorn en masse. And it is very interesting to me to see how that has been flipped on its head. And now people are just, renting it and using their Amazon Prime or, their Disney Plus or their whatever. And now it's really gotten to the point where it's become pretty normal. But let's jump into the synopsis so we can double check and see what in the world is going on with this sci-fi action flick, The Tomorrow War, as of the IMDb synopsis, which is pretty short, actually. A family man is drafted to fight in a future war where the fate of humanity relies on his ability to confront the past. I mean, it sounds like something I would see in the back of like a romance novel or something that I would buy from, not a romance novel, but a sci-fi novel that I would buy from you're about to get on the, you can tell where my head's at. You can tell, Chris Pratt's so dreamy. Anyway, you have like a book that you would see at the airport or whatever. It has like decent cover art. You turn around the back and you see that it's like a family man drafted to fight in a future war where the fate of humanity relies on his ability to confront the past. You see what I did there? I used a lot of words that kind of circled in on themselves because he's looking at the future, but can't get through the future unless he's able to use the past and whatever. This was a pretty interesting watch, I think.
I get it.
Are you getting it? Okay, excellent.
I get
Try
it.
to keep
Okay.
up. Try to keep up. I know I'm obtuse, but I mean,
I get it.
come on.
Okay.
It is a 2021 American military science fiction action film directed by Chris McKay and starring Chris Pratt. This is from the wiki. The picture was produced by David Ellison, Dana Goldberg, Don Granger, a lot of other names, and written by Zach Dean. The supporting cast characters, which we will talk about when it comes to the cast, really good, kind of straight men and women too. From a characteristic point of view, to counteract the somewhat whimsical and humorous nature that Chris Pratt takes with these parts that could be taken very seriously. And he's able to turn the serious on, which we'll also talk about. But originally set for theatrical release by Paramount Pictures, the film's distribution rights were acquired by Amazon due to the COVID-19 pandemic and digitally released on July 2nd, 2021 via Prime Video. The Tomorrow War received mixed reviews from critics, with praise for the concept, action sequences, performances, particularly with Pratt and Richardson, but criticism aimed towards its derivative execution. A sequel is already in development as of the date of this recording. So, immediately.
Why are they doing another one?
Okay.
Why are they doing another one?
Okay.
No.
So you guys are in for a treat, because before, when we had our incredible third co-host Umberto Estrada, it would usually be a situation where, honestly, the majority of the time, Andrus and I were a little more in agreement towards the different titles that we come to, and then Bert would just pour ice water over it because he has a really good, realistic view of the way these things can be interpreted, which we always find refreshing, and which we will find refreshing when Bert's on the show again as a guest in the future. But this is a good, and we were talking about this very little before we started to record. I kind of liked this movie, and Andrus, maybe not so, but of course, we're going to provide you with a well-balanced commentary regarding the production, the story implementation, the things they got right, the things they got wrong. We'll see what happens. So, Andrus, let's do a quick, without spoiling it too much, why don't you tell me generally, when you were watching this movie, what came out to you, and what are the things that you remember, and what are the things that you couldn't wait to forget while you were going through this thing?
I'm trying to find something in my office that looks like a dumpster. Turn it on fire.
God.
Okay. So here's the thing.
Yeah,
I did not hate this movie.
I know. You don't really hate any movie, but
it'd be quite entertaining.
Yeah.
For a large degree of what this movie was. Okay.
Okay.
So entertainment value is my biggest
Absolutely.
qualifier or condition for watching movies.
Right.
And there's very, very few that I've come out of where I said, give me my money.
That's true. That's very true.
We reviewed one of them.
Yes, we did.
and like I wrote a letter to the production demanding my money and my time.
Oh my God. I don't mean to like be toxic or anything. This is one of my favorite versions of Andrus right here, where it's like, hey, we're going to talk about this because I'm slightly enraged.
I didn't really do that, but I wanted to.
I know, I feel you.
So this one, it's not about the execution of the special effects. It's not about the execution of the visuals and
right. Very competent.
There's some stuff with the story, and there's some stuff with the action, and there's some stuff with the performances, and there's some stuff with the score, and there's some stuff with the sound and the dubbing.
Well, that's what we're here for.
I mean, I felt like it was dubbed in a different language.
Really? That's interesting.
Oh.
Okay, good.
But I do have some problems with this one, and that's why I'm so passionate today.
I feel you, and I appreciate that. I love your passion. I've always loved your passion.
But the concept, I love the concept.
It's a cool concept. Yeah.
I think the concept in James Cameron's hands would be pretty stellar. Yeah. The concept in Ridley Scott's hands would be pretty stellar.
Right. Well, they've done this kind of stuff before too. I mean, it's been a situation where they've played with the idea of time coming in and out, especially with like Terminator, with Ridley Scott. And even though I'm not a big fan of Prometheus, the way in which he was able to kind of push in adaptations, but
yeah, earlier works. But man, I think that Joss Whedon was the one for this one.
I agree with you. I was thinking that myself. Yeah, for sure.
I kind of, just because there is a lightheartedness to some of this.
Well, as Chris Pratt, you can't have a serious film with Chris Pratt without him being able to smile at the camera and do some corny one-liners the way he works.
Right. And that's why I really like him in Jurassic, actually.
Yeah.
In the Jurassic franchise.
Yeah, me too.
I think that this is that same character.
Right.
I didn't see much of a difference between these two, to be honest.
Yeah, it was kind of like looking at Star-Lord, but he was like, trapped on Earth and he had a daughter. Oh, what?
Spoiler alert!
Did I say something about the... Hey, guys, if you have not seen this movie, stop listening to the episode because we're going to... I actually pushed the wrong button there for a second, but let me do this properly.
Spoiler alert!
I like horn.
Spoiler alert!
Do you want to... I can do the horn again if you want. Anyway, I am sorry because to add to your... to add to your annoyance, you're not annoyed, but I keep cutting you off when you're trying to tell me what it is you're thinking. I promise, for the next 30 seconds, I'll keep... See, I'm doing it right now. It's so stupid. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
I love it.
So you were saying then there were some things at the story. I'm pretty sure this one kind of messed with the cardinal sin, where we were forced to fill in some blanks here and there. But you were talking about the direction, and I can respect completely where you're coming from when it comes to the work that was put through here. We did have a fresh director here in the guise of not the guise, but not the direction, but also the writing too, with Zach Dean, who is actually he got his teeth cut on some, how can I put this, shocking kind of pieces of work. I mean, I'm pretty sure that when it comes to his filmography, he's doing things from like Deadfall, 24 Hours to Live, before he was able to get the Tomorrow War stuff. I'm pretty sure he did some work with might have been the director actually, who has a big history with Adult Swim, doing like Robot Chicken and that kind of thing. This slapstick kind of sci-fi kind of background, and written by somebody who has like more of like a pretty action-oriented kind of situation. You would think that when you have like Chris Pratt being at the head of it, it would end up being a winner, and financially it has been. But let's talk about how, though it's very easy to appreciate the hard work and the effort that goes into it, and I think we do a pretty good job of being pretty balanced in that regard. We both know how hard it is to try and make independent features work. You have definitely a lot more experience when it comes to larger network stuff, but it is definitely a hard job, and I think we do a good job of getting credit where credit is due. Doesn't necessarily make up for things where we have depleting returns on a plot or cast, even though we have like pretty good production value. So there's a couple things that I want to touch on. Specifically, this may have been a movie that had the wrong director. Maybe it should have been, it would have been better handled from like, a Joss Whedon or like a, the Rufio brothers, or the ones who took care of like, the Marvel movies and that kind of stuff. What were your main concerns when it came to like the flow of the production and how that was able to affect your opinion?
The reason that I said that is I think that there were a couple of things that in the movie that were out of place, and I think that that's either the director's job or the editor's job as far as where those pieces belong. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest fails for me was when he reconnects with his estranged father. And he has this emotional outburst. And I thought that was the stupidest thing on the planet.
Really?
What the situation was. I'm just like, why are you tantruming in this circumstance? I understand that the stakes are high and all of that. But I mean, to slam your fist on a table and say, no, in the context of where everything else was, I think that was just, the actor doing a take that was maybe relevant for the take, but when it comes down to the editing and the direction of the piece, it didn't belong in that moment. There were quite a few of those along the way, especially towards the end of the movie on some goodbyes moments.
That's kind of where it lost me too.
I didn't find them connected or believable through a lot of it.
That's interesting.
Now, that doesn't mean that the actors were bad. That means that those moments didn't fit where they fit from my interpretation.
I meant the Russo brothers, by the way, when I was saying the Rufio brothers. I misspoke, but I can I can definitely pick up where you're putting down. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But you know what? Johnny Quest is a big deal for me. I was called Johnny Quest growing up.
Yeah.
So the fact that Chris McKay is doing that, I don't want to badmouth him.
I got you.
But just the idea of this circumstance, and it's kind of cliche. I'm such a big fan of cliche, by the way, because I connect with cliche.
Well, I understand. Like, you have to have the right amount of camp, and when we have blockbuster action like this, there's a lot of camp, especially when you're dealing with the subject matter of like time travel and aliens ? Coming through. Absolutely,
well, I believe all of that. I just don't believe those moments.
So when we have a blockbuster original film directed by the same guy who did the Lego Batman movie, Doolittle, 2 Weeks, 1 Year, a lot of animation, a lot of stuff with like really great comedic stuff with like, Adult Swim. You're expecting to believe in the somewhat romantically dramatic relationships that should be accepted when it comes to the main characters and his dad and his family. I mean, I don't understand what the problem is. It's okay. I'm listening. I'm always listening.
The answer is yes.
Okay. Why? Why? This guy's subject matter and his work history does not really say, grapes of wrath. It says slapstick. You know what I mean?
I do not care.
Okay. Tell me why.
I think that the moments that he was looking for were there. I just don't think he chose the right moments to put in.
I got you.
The right moments.
Honestly,
so,
you're gonna.
I mean,
this is where I really lean in on your expertise as an actor, and also given
tell me. When you're watching that scene between father and son reunited after so long, and father says, "Are you wearing a wire?" and son goes, "Damn it, that's not why I'm here." Do you think that was really what the intended purpose for that scene was?
It wasn't the intended purpose, but if you were to ask me if I
Did you laugh at it?
Ask me if I liked the scene.
Did you laugh with it?
I didn't laugh with it. Ask me if I liked it.
Did you enjoy it? Was it okay?
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Did you really?
I did, because I thought that Chris Pratt
overly dramatic, hand stomp on his table.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Why?
Because my expectations were going into this, it was going to be akin to like a Michael Bay movie. Yeah, I'm thinking like, we're going to have the same kind of interactions.
So yes, honestly, I thought of Michael Bay a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And like the way in which because of the ways in which I think that Michael Bay has been able to prove that he's good at one thing and one thing only, that's big, loud, and admittedly in a lot of reasons fun movies, I was able to have the temperament where it's like, oh man, father and son staring across a table, being able to confess their sins. I mean, it's super, super melodramatic camp, but I was kind of prepared for it by like watching the preview and doing a little research before I watched the movie. So that might be a little bit on me.
Here's my argument.
Yeah.
Is because we did review the last Michael Bay movie.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Right?
Yep.
My argument there is 6 Underground had all of the humor. It had all of the ridiculous things, and it also had some quality moments.
Technically, yeah, it was still a dumpster fire, but yes, I respect.
No, don't get me wrong. It's an action movie of action movies, and that's all that was, right?
Okay.
But this one,
I love it when you're amped up on this stuff. I love it so much. Go ahead.
This one really did. It had all of check.
Yes, it did.
All of those boxes,
yes.
Right? But it didn't have the connection. It was so out of the scope of what the connection was, at least for me. And
I appreciate that.
Speaking about for me, but all of our listeners will agree with me. They will agree. Because I'm correct.
All right, I understand where you're coming from.
There was just, I mean, and maybe I'm just fantasizing the idea.
No, I think you're okay. I think
more.
No.
We've all been through the end of the world scenarios this year.
Yes, sir.
And I think that this it diminishes it by doing it.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Microphone. That was amazing.
I really do appreciate the fact that you're taking into consideration not only the point at which these dramatic moments that which needed to be taken seriously. You weren't fighting aliens or something when two people are trying to confess their how hard it was to love one another kind of situation. I think it's really kind of a good way to take into consideration how much like the ways in which those dramatic parts are put in the wrong places, the way in which this movie was produced and let out was kind of weird as well. We're dealing with a movie that is apocalyptic, and you put a really good point forward. We've kind of dealt with that, and maybe the way in which the negative reception that has been pushed through with this movie may be in relation to the timing that it was released. We've had plenty of Oscar contenders that have come out that wouldn't have gotten the nods that they've gotten because of the timing that was pushed through. We talked about a couple of them, and maybe this movie is dealing with that a little bit. Of course, I think that we could probably argue as well that with everybody stuck inside, maybe it's nice to lean back and watch Chris Pratt tell a couple jokes and shoot a couple eight-legged aliens from the Antarctic into pieces too. So
okay.
But
can we get into that side of it, because I've got so much to say on that crap too.
I would really like to think about some other things before we jump into it. But yeah, let's put a little comma on that one, because there's definitely some themes towards the end. And I'll be honest with you, I should be very more specific about this. I liked 95% of this movie. It lost me at the ending. So one thing that we have to take into consideration are which we'll get into like in more depth, the themes that were borrowed in order to make this movie. There have been a couple things popping up, and I know that most of it is because of it is time to it's like the commercialism behind it. The term original has been thrown out when it comes to describing this movie on more than one occasion. What are your feelings about that? Do you think that this is like a truly original feature? And when I say that,
we've never seen anything like this before ever. If I'm really thinking about it, the closest that we've ever had to it are maybe a movie from the 70s called The Thing,
right,
and maybe another movie of recent years called The Edge of Tomorrow. If I repeat, maybe you put the two of those together. And
wait. Are you saying that if The Thing and The Edge of Tomorrow had a baby, then maybe this would be it, right? I totally agree with you.
This would be that baby. Yeah, I mean, and maybe Michael Bay was the instigator of that baby making process.
Possibly.
I don't think anything's original anymore, and if it is, then kudos to the people that can come up with it and sell it. But I mean, it's another reluctant hero story.
Yeah,
it's another sci-fi jump through time and space scenario. They made it unique enough. They made it original enough. But what they didn't make original enough was the
human elements, the real parts.
That, and also the fact that these creatures are ridiculously violent and deadly, yet they can't be violent and deadly with our heroes.
Okay. Well, I have
such a problem with that.
So there is
expendable people can be expendable.
Yeah. But somehow the top three cast or whatever, and specifically, I mean, like that's one thing we got to talk about when it comes to like the story structure as well. So what happens,
especially at the height of the issues?
Oh yeah. During the ending, they really put that into full gear, and I think that plus the narrative plot holes that are just there for the sake of being there. I mean, towards the end, the movie does definitely go like full Michael Bay, for lack of a better term, and it kind of abandons the whole structure of a hero's journey versus just big explosions and look how cool the aliens look and all this other stuff. Towards the ending, it definitely suffers the most, but what do you think is probably, I don't know, it's hard to me to kind of characterize this, because again, majority of the movie, I'm digging it, but I'm digging it from a perspective where they set up good pacing, the idea is really easy to understand, the solution is really easy to understand, and then they do the whole thing. They put Chris Pratt, who may or may have not been the right choice as the lead.
I think he's a good.
I think it is pretty good. Do you think it's like it's like the smile, because he's capable of being able to provide like seriousness here and there, or with the comedic kind of stuff, or what do you think?
No, not at all. I just think that you fit any of our leading men in the action world. I mean, Ryan Reynolds would be perfect for us.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like Chris Evans would have been another one.
Chris Evans would have been another one, yep.
There's so many of our leading men that could have done this role. I'm glad that Chris Pratt did it because I have nothing bad to say about the guy.
Sure.
I have a problem with I don't know if it's the structure of the movie or the storyline as is, or the acting to directing connection.
Yeah, the synergy or whatever. Yeah,
editing or what it is. But there's some fails for me, and one is the connection between the cast members.
Okay, so there's no chemistry there, and for you, I can imagine like we've talked about that again, where like in the past, some of the things that have saved what would be a bad story was because we could tell that the characters were really, really feeling it, and that's something I think that's why I'm glad that you and I have the capability to talk about this, because you're seeing into these things that I missed. Because I do like the idea of J.K. Simmons and Chris Pratt being able to have these one-on-one scenes and out of nothing be able to create what I thought was pretty good. We have that same thing coming about with Pratt and Strahovski's character during the last scene where Dan Forrester is there. He knows his daughter is going to die, and I think that they both do a really good job of being able to act with their action versus acting with their words. It's cliched, and it's definitely stuff that's been taken from other action movies over and over again. It's recycling. But what do you think was probably was that like the biggest challenge of the entire movie? I mean, was that the biggest thing that kind of came out for you? Just the chemistry was off? Or was it like a combination of other things?
So the answer is yes, because I don't give a crap about any of these characters.
Really? Not at all? Yeah. I was feeling it when
you really were?
I swear, yeah. It might be because I'm definitely a sucker for like this schlocky kind of action kind of stuff, and the pacing was really good, and I was definitely happy with momentum, and that's another thing too. I imagine if we were like in the theater watching this, you would be seeing layers in the performances that I'd be missing. I'm not an actor, but when I see them going and like. When I don't know what it was, but it seemed that even especially with Betty Gilpin and Chris Pratt, when Dan comes back from the front after 7 days, just the look on her face when she sees that he's going through PTSD and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, maybe.
Okay, so again, I think they're hitting all of the notes that they need to hit.
Right, they're filling in they're coloring in the numbers, right?
My biggest problem is, Chris Pratt's character. What's his name?
I wouldn't be able to tell you without looking at the IMDb article. That's right. It's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
What's his name?
It's Dan Forrester, but I wouldn't be able to.
Thank you very much.
I thought you were using that as a point. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I was, for one. I was. How many times do they say his name in the movie?
I don't know. A handful of times?
Oh, no. It's a lot.
A lot. Okay. Okay.
Right? Because his last name, also, you can hit the spoiler button because there it is.
Spoiler alerts.
Happens to be relevant in the future, too.
So are you talking about the scene where Colonel Murray Forrester, his now a daughter played by Yvonne Strahovski, somehow gets him on the CB after he jumps into the future?
What?
Out of the...
Baby, give me a hug. No, F you, Dad.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. So here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
They have father and child issues on both sides of the
yes,
thing,
yeah.
Right?
Oh, let's clarify. Let's clarify really quickly in regards to just the general story idea. So what's happening is that we find out in the movie that the army from the future goes back in time. They say, "Hey, the world's going to end. We're running out of people. We need to borrow people from the past." And the reason as to why that doesn't make some sort of weird paradox is because the people that they're borrowing from the past will die before the invasion or whatever it is, the hibernation. Hey, no, the invasion takes place so that they're safe. The event. Thank you. So we find out early on that Chris Pratt's character is going to die prior to the invasion happening, so he gets recruited right away. Also, we definitely take the first 15 minutes of being able to understand very specifically that Dan Forrester is a former military infantryman. So that's necessary for the story.
What else is he?
He's a teacher. He's a high school teacher.
Scientist.
He's a scientist. That's true. He's also a proud father, a good husband. He's a good neighbor. He recycles. He's a Boy Scout, pretty much is what he is. So that's definitely put into play. What happens is that he gets pushed into the future, and by some strange occurrence, even though only 30% of the people live through the experience after being enlisted, he's able to somehow make contact with his now adult daughter, and they go forward and fight the alien horde, ultimately to have a victory regards to finding a poison that will kill all of the aliens, which then is what starts our third act, but ultimately comes at a price with the death of Colonel Gary Forrester.
The edit on this could have changed everything for me. Had we had the people suck him out of high school, teaching, take him through the process in the unknown, like he's in the unknown. Nobody's answering any of his questions. We get thrown into this world. All of these things. They show the World Cup entrance of the bag, or the band of youngsters coming through, telling us about the.
You mean the models who had the body armor on? Yeah.
He goes through his jump, and then through the exposition of him meeting and connecting with all of these other people in his same situation, we find out that he's a dad. We find out that he's a scientist.
Gotcha.
We find out that he's an estranged son to his father. We find out all of those things. We come back. That meeting with his wife is so much more powerful.
Yeah.
His connection with his daughter is so much more powerful. His connection with his dad is so much more powerful, because now we don't have any of the garbage that we've seen before, as far as, okay, he was cute with his daughter. Well, of course he's cute with his daughter. It's his daughter. We get it.
Yeah.
I just think it, for the context of what this movie could be for me in my brain, edited that way, and I think that
it could have been completely different. Just
questions, but that's still at the same time that we're watching.
Right. That's what.
Not to mention, is estrangement with his daughter in the future makes a lot more sense.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, like when that's the choice that Chris McKay and the production made, because they wanted, instead of us to get like a more riveting delivery method through exposition. That's what these movies do. It's about pop and circumstance. It's about seeing the aliens, about seeing the leading man or woman do their thing. So instead of doing what I agree with you, Andrus, what would have been a bit more interesting in regards to us finding out these things about Dan Forrester through conversations through these with these other people during this extravagant situation, it's just so much easier for us to find out when he has a cell phone call over a job interview. I mean, it's bim bam boom. It's 2 minutes. That's the way it works.
Yeah, but that's also stupid.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the things that. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You had.
I was just gonna say the reason that I didn't connect with this character is because there was nothing to connect.
Yeah, no. They presented it.
He was an everyday guy.
Right.
He wasn't. Whatever.
It's the same. The analogy that I've been told to use when it comes to things like this is like it's a food analogy. Okay, so like let's say that you order a burger and fries and you eat it. Okay, you carry on with your day. But if you get through some sort of exposition or some sort of experience, finding out where that meat came from, how the buns were made in the local bakery, how people were able to get the veggies that you put on the hamburger from their local garden, and how that was able to come up on your plate, whatever. You would appreciate it more. That's the same thing that's happening here. This is fast food movie making. This is a quick delivery of ideas and character development that lets us just nom, so we can get to the second act, which is where all the action in the movie takes place anyway. And it's lazy, but I mean, it works. We know it works when it comes from a production standpoint for making money.
works for you.
Well, either way, I mean, we're still going to. Well, yeah, no, I get it. I understand where you're coming from, but again, I knew going into this that it was probably going to be fast food. I really did. I wasn't expecting anything where it was like a situation where we're going to have, again, like an Edge of Tomorrow situation where we had an action movie, but we had more exposition through the eyes of the main character to develop the reasons as to why he has these opinions towards the steps that he takes, justifying and giving us a reason as to why he's taking those steps. This movie, Tomorrow War, did happen to commit the cardinal sin. In order for you and I to kind of process it, we had to fill in the blanks. It takes more than just saying something, saying a line on the screen to make us say, oh, that makes sense. We need more. We need to have that through exposition, through action, and through development of events. And that's what the first act of this whole movie should have been. It shouldn't have been a situation where we see how Chris Pratt and J.K. Simmons are capable of doing a 1v1 and being able to have tears pool in his eyes. Through the action of the film, we should be introduced to the character, have him go through the process. Don't frown at me. Have him go through the process of experiencing all these things as the audience would, and then have some connective tissue to regarding the action that he takes in the second act and how he has to fight even harder to get back to the past that he left behind, and also show us more through the exposition of action versus these quick scenes that the actors are having that give us justification in regards to why Dan Forrester is even fighting with in the first place, besides the obvious. Yeah, go ahead.
I am going to retract everything that I said because I think that it's a genius move on the director's part for what I am about to say.
Okay.
This speech Yvonne Strahovski gives him as far as the abandonment of you abandoned as all of this.
You mean the speech after they're done destroying the hive of aliens and kidnapping the queen, and they end up being in a Humvee on a Dominican Republic beach, and she's wailing at him with words instead of bullets? Yes, Andrus, I'm well aware of that speech.
That's the precipice for his return home and the instigating factor in annihilating the empire. That was going to be my alternate speech here. It's like, this movie is incredible because he manipulated him so well that she did it. She knows what she's doing.
So it was
circumstantial.
So wait a minute. Are you saying that Colonel Murray Forrester knew that she was going to die the entire time?
No. She knew that she could manipulate her dad the entire time into doing whatever she needed him to do. Yeah.
I think it was just about trying.
I think it's a mad genius movie. I think everybody should watch it to learn how to master their skills of manipulation.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I love it. I love you. All right, cool. So let's move on in regards to like how this was getting pushed through. So I want to talk a little bit when it comes to like the technical background here, because again, this is a movie that was it was calendared to come out in theaters, but I mean, obviously because of what was going on, couldn't get going. It looks like from the wiki, it was announced in February 2019 that Chris Pratt was in negotiations to star in the film. At that point, it was known as Ghost Draft. And it would be directed by Chris McKay. In July, Yvonne Strahovski was cast, J.K. Simmons, so on and so forth, Betty Gilpin, Sam Richardson, Theo Vaughn, Jasmine Matthews, Keith Powers were cast in August, with a number of others, additional cast joining in September. The movie was later retitled Tomorrow War, with creator-designer Ken Bartholomew designing the film's Aliens. The filming began on September 1st, 2019. In Georgia, Atlanta, and Iceland, and it was wrapped up in January 12th, 2020. So this was a winter filming. It was filming along the time that things were beginning to ramp up, but ultimately, once more, as we were seeing with a lot of these other titles, I guess I've been proven wrong again. The production was not taking place during the hardcore point of the plague, but afterwards the distribution and the capabilities of being able to market the movie were. And as we've seen, that in and of itself can be a big problem when it comes to releases. We've talked about it before, how the plague, of course, with COVID-19 has changed a lot of things. And this was definitely a good example of how what was once thought to be a killer blockbuster lost its chance to get to theaters, but was able to get some momentum because of streaming services and everything pushed through on that end of things. From the wiki once more, the film was initially scheduled for release on December 25th, 2020 by Paramount Pictures, but again, due to the pandemic, it was rescheduled for July 23rd, 2021. That is a huge pushback, especially when you're trying to get, holiday money, when the blockbuster season is ending. I don't know if, we've talked about this tactically, but blockbuster season every year starts up around June, July, goes through the summer, and does not end until New Year's weekend, roughly, because that's when people are usually going to be shelling out a lot of money, going to the theaters, doing what they have to. People are on vacation, people with family, that kind of thing. But when we have coming up with this one is that it was rescheduled on July 23rd of this year, taking the release date of Mission Impossible 7, then later pulled from the schedule again. And then in January of this year, it was finally able to have the rights pushed through by Amazon, probably at a loss, although they were able to acquire the film for around $200 million. But taking that into consideration and how much they would have gotten at the gate, regardless of what we may think of the way in which the exposition was pushed through, this movie is a moneymaker. And it's arguable that even though for, normal people like you and I, Andrus, $200 million is a big chunk of money, when you think about the worldwide gross that most films of this nature have, $200 million is actually a pretty big steal when it comes to being able to distribute this, and now it being the #1 streamed movie of the entire year. When it comes to titles like this, why is it that you think that they gained so much popularity so quickly, regardless of the challenges that they had to deal with when it came to release and when it came to production? We have this coming up here, and you see it in the commercials that were coming around for Tomorrow War, #1 streamed movie in the country. Why is that? What's the equation that they're following? Why do you think, even during the time of a pandemic, they're still able to, get the box office draw, even though it's with people in their living rooms? Is it like, just the...
It's a popcorn movie, for sure.
But go into that a little bit more. Like, we've talked about how, loss of exposition, the over-campiness. I mean, does that make it a bad movie, or does that make it just a movie that's just purely profitable?
No, like I said, I stand by what I said at the beginning.
Sorry to make you repeat yourself.
It was okay. I mean, it had all of the things that people watching this kind of movie want to see.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As everything in there. So I think if we're talking about a formulaic action movie, this is a formulaic action movie. It's a reluctant hero story. It's what we've seen for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
As long as they really don't screw that up, it's going to be a moneymaker.
Moneymaker.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to say on that because, it's...
Because it's a tried and true equation, right? It's we know it's going to work. Yeah.
It's like you get the stars that people want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You put them in a movie and you do a good enough job, they're going to watch it regardless. This is way better than a good enough job.
Yeah.
But it still has some issues for us to talk about. It still has some things that it's not a perfect movie.
Yeah, but it's a competent one. And that's the reason why sometimes we take it into consideration too.
That's why the company bought it for $200 million.
Exactly. Do you think that when we see success like this coming up, and I mean specifically not when it comes to the quality of the writing or whatever, but fun movies like this being able to be produced, acquired, and distributed all at home, what that says about the future of theaters in general? I mean, you and I... Well, you have, which is great, but I still have yet to go to a theater, but I plan on changing that up soon enough. What does this say about how... this is a big question. And I always hit you with these questions where it's like, you have to say, I really don't know how to answer that because you're asking me whether or not, life exists or whatever, but I'm going to do it anyway. this is kind of proof of the pudding that maybe cinema is kind of dead, I think, because we have so much commercialization, so much notoriety, so much gradulations when it comes to this movie being distributed specifically through Amazon Prime. And this was a big deal. This was big blockbuster.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say cinema is not dead because people still want the get out and go.
Do they
out.
though? I mean, I was happy watching this in my living room. Wasn't you? Wasn't you? Weren't you?
Wasn't you?
Wasn't you?
Yes, I were. I still think that this is a big budget blockbuster movie that you would want to go see in the movie theater and experience with all of the big flashy everything's. It's.
I just love exhausting you with questions. I'm sorry.
Well, because there's truth in every answer that I could give you.
That's
right?
true. No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
So if this were to go to the movie theater when its intended release was, it would be a huge flop because nobody would go.
That's interesting.
Okay. I think that given the nature of where we are, given the nature of what is going on in the world, movies like Black Widow that came out this week are going to do just fine in both platforms.
Oh, I feel you. Okay.
This one, had it been released earlier when its intended release was, I don't think would have been as successful as it was in the streaming platform that it was. But it's so subjective on what we're talking about and where it goes.
Yeah.
And who's capable and willing to go to the theater too.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think cinema's dead until the government says no more public any.
Gotcha.
Then I think cinema's dead.
I gotcha.
But people will still go.
Yeah.
They want
the experience, right?
Like I'm excited for the IMAX when the IMAX possibility comes back.
You and me both.
I mean, it's also being a cinephile. So
oh yeah.
You know,
I feel you. That's a great answer.
I think the answer is until it's no longer available.
When the convenience is no longer appropriate to people's situations. That's great. Well, then let's go into specializations then, because I think we've been able to be pretty concrete in regards to our opinions and why we have those opinions. Obviously, I would suggest you guys go see this if you want to have a good time, make some popcorn, deal with it. It's gonna be a good time at the very least. Just don't expect too much when it comes to the feels. The one-on-one scenes I think are great, but to Andrus's point, the actors are doing a lot of heavy lifting, and the inopportune timing of when we see the emotion pop out. Well, motion that's more complicated than just die aliens die. It can be a little off-putting. But let's go to specializations a little bit. The cast here is pretty good, man. I mean, with Chris Pratt coming through, we're going to be making money in that regard. I was very happy to see Yvonne Strahovski and Betty Gilpin get in there. Yvonne has been doing great stuff. I mean, I've been a fan of hers ever since the Chuck series, and that's been very cool. Betty Gilpin, of course, fame with Go, with the wrestling series from Netflix, a very capable, wonderful actress who is, capable of doing drama and comedy. We have supporting cast by Edwin Hodge, who played Dorian, who was the do or die veteran of the of the group, who ended up sacrificing himself towards the end to save the world from alien menace.
I am such a fan of his and his brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really happy that
I think the choice that I did not see coming, even though it was just he was just filling in the box a little bit as a comedic relief that later ended up finding his honor and finding his courage towards the end. But honestly, Sam Richardson, I think, was my favorite part of this movie. He did a really great job.
You know what? He annoyed the crap out of me in the first five minutes.
Yeah.
But then he won me over. I have to say that he was a very, very pleasant surprise for me too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Do you think so? Let's talk a little bit because you've touched on it a little bit, right? It's very easy for us to say how the chemistry here, when we're supposed to see these big points of emotion in this movie play through, kind of fall flat. Was that specifically because there wasn't a lot of chemistry in the cast, or do you think it was? I mean, like, what do you think were the holes there?
I don't think it's chemistry in the cast, because I think the cast had chemistry.
Okay.
I think it's chemistry with the material, with the storyline.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
What it's supposed to be. And like I said, I made a joke about it earlier, but the idea of dad traveling through time to meet his older version of his daughter, who holds so much animosity and resentment towards him for leaving, coming to this moment in time.
Yeah.
How can you have that position? I don't understand why that's even a part of what this is.
Gotcha.
So that's why I'm gonna flip it and say she is manipulating him so that he can move forward in the time that he's going back to.
Right. She's changing their future.
I think so. I really do. I'm gonna stand by that. And that makes this movie a much more thoughtful or thought through movie as well. Because I mean, all of the pieces are there, but talking it out is what's making me realize that that's what happened. But
well, I mean, no. If I may, I think that like we as an audience don't know if that's happening unless it's presented to us through the dialogue or through the action. And this is a great example of what we always talk about as being the cardinal sin. Yeah. In order for you to really enjoy this movie, you have to fill in that empty space. You have to answer that question for yourself, because that answer isn't provided to you in the dialogue. It's not provided to you. An answer is, and the answer is because. That's it. That's what the movie tells us as the justification. But that doesn't make enough sense when you think about the history of the characters coming through in the story.
Well, because honestly, the history of the character, she's talking about things that we never see
exactly
go through, and he hasn't lived yet.
Yes.
So I mean,
so why is he? How is he supposed to feel guilty for it?
It's well, and that's just it. Is I don't think he's supposed to be feeling anything but don't do that.
Right.
Step up, get to it, do something other than be a lazy waste of space. Because
you know what? Yeah, you're right. I mentioned before, it's like she changed the future. Well, did she? I mean, we can't tell because we never saw those bad things happen that she said happened.
Well,
you know?
no, she did.
Oh, she did.
And that's okay. Well, that's exactly what we're told, because she gave him information that he took back. He no longer took that path.
Right.
Changed the future. The end.
No.
Now, if there's a sequel, maybe that didn't happen at all. Maybe everything just is a big old cluster.
Well, we'll find out when the sequel is put down, because there is going to be a sequel.
Right. But for me, it's chemistry in the storyline. It's not chemistry in the connection.
You know what? I love it. I love talking to you about that. That's a concept that I never even thought of, quite honestly. What's more important?
Simmons and Chris Pratt, I think were very, very good together, and I think that they're a good match for father and son. But the words didn't land for me, and maybe that's the actor's problem, and maybe it's the directors or the editors. But it didn't fly for me, nor did that scene on the beach, nor did the ending. So
the thing with melodrama and the thing with camp is that it's diminishing returns, even for fans who are into that kind of mentality of the movie.
I'm a huge fan of melodrama.
Me too.
For me, that's where I want to take my directing, is like, let's go big.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it's got to be let's go big the whole way, not partially. And I think that's maybe where this one is.
Yeah, in between. It's fireworks. It's not. It's there to have you get the oohs and the ahs. But if you were to ask questions as to why, you're not going to get a satisfaction in regards to that.
The cast in this, I think, for the old time frame was really, really great.
Yeah.
The new soldiers, I didn't like any of what happened there, because they were so calm in their delivery as far as
let's go back.
What we're doing, blah blah blah.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go back really quickly and talk about something that you did bring up before that I wanted to talk about before we call it a night. You mentioned, and this is a really great point, all of these people going into the future, and because of a problem with like the time jump, most of them die because they actually materialize 1,000 feet above the city where they're supposed to land.
Well, on this jump,
exactly. But you made a really good point, and this is something that does bother me a lot because it wasn't done very competently. It looks like the lead character has a lot of plot armor, and that is in no danger of being hurt or killed or whatever. And the other side, we have all of these people that are just getting picked off. We like, for instance, two really good characters that had a bit of spotlight, two comedic actors, Nora and Cohen, who are played by Marilyn Rajkub and Mike Mitchell, two comedic actors that are really very good in what they do. They had a great depth scene. They were like, they went out in a blaze of glory. Awesome. Yeah. But you bring up a really good question too here. Like, these people are getting picked off back and forth. Why isn't Dan Forrester being targeted when he's like in the same group? There's nothing special about him. Or is there?
Well, there is, because he has some military training, and I can excuse him being out of the line of fire because of that.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So that, as far as like the scope of the initial interaction with these creatures, that's fine.
Right. My
problem that I brought up earlier was when they're in the hive and everything is coming.
Yeah, towards the end of the movie.
It's not just, what is it? Five
people.
10?
Yeah, five.
The creatures.
Yeah.
How many creatures are in that initial interaction?
Like a dozen tops.
A dozen, maybe? Okay. Well, we see this drove of them coming towards the hive to protect the queen.
Yeah.
How long does it take them to get there?
Not very long at all. Not very long at all.
Not based on the scene that they're showing them move earlier.
Okay.
Yet they're in the hive trying to capture this queen for how long?
Yeah, a few minutes at least, for sure. Okay.
At least. At that point, they're overrun. Everybody's dead. The movie ends. The aliens win. All of that.
I feel you.
I mean, that happened a few times.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, and all of a sudden they fly. Like I heard Star Wars. I heard Star Wars in my.
Yeah. For sure.
They can fly now.
They're the perfect killing machine. They can fly. Wait, what? What? They can fly? Oh God. Oh my God.
Squirreling.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's just irritating.
Okay. Well, I mean, like you mentioned it before, like we were talking about this. I watched this movie once by myself for the podcast, and then friends of mine online wanted to watch too, and I was like, okay, maybe there was something. Yeah. Maybe there's something I missed. I didn't miss anything. But we were talking about it towards like the last 5 minutes of the film. This is Aliens. This is Prometheus. This is like even the way the ship looked. It looked like something out of James Cameron's Aliens for sure. But so there's 100%. There's no originality, but it was the pacing and the time jumping concept and Chris Pratt's smile and the capability that really was selling this thing for sure.
I'm a fan of volcanoes. I know an expert.
That was the most Michael Bay point of the entire movie.
It was so dumb.
I love it when you're getting passionate about this stuff. I love it very much. I promise the next one we'll watch will be like, a little more put together. The sound design in here was ridiculously competent. It was very, very fun. I do really love how one thing that the nerd part in my brain is Chris Pratt being a military guy, he knows to make sure that his barrel is clean before when he checks his weapon. And my God, the fact that they actually went into the layers of sound design. There's a scene where like he's pulling out his barrel and he looks at it and he flips the safety on. It's its own sound. In a different part of the movie where he comes out of water and he does the same exact motion, but it sounds different. That's awesome. That kind of stuff. That little like really stupid crap makes me so happy when I see it in these things, especially when, again, the old kind of thing pops up. We're dealing with a sci-fi fantasy based in a world where there's math and there's rules, and we know what certain things have to sound like in order for us to believe it. But when it came to like, the creature sounds was so good. Nothing I haven't heard before. Like we've heard stuff like that off of like, Aliens and like Starship Troopers and that kind of stuff. But the sound of like the thunk where like they're shooting their spikes out, which is why they're called white spikes, I believe. sounded like, you know, a grenade launcher being puked out of a pineapple, and it just made me so happy when they did that. It was so good. I think that, like, when you have
I think that's what they actually did for the sound effect.
Maybe. But when it comes from a sound perspective, when you said that, like, there was some audio sync issues, there was definitely some ADR that I was able to pick out.
Was there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
When that
was more of a joke than anything, but I'm glad that you noticed that.
Yeah, there was definitely some ADR, but it was still pretty competent. But the original design and being able to work with fantastic things in a realistic world always makes me happy, because it's a challenging thing. It's like we mentioned before. There's a different sound map entirely when you're dealing with, like, Lord of the Rings and Star Trek versus Anne of Green Gables. But when you have, like, you know, sci-fi does this a lot, especially with, like, you know, the past decade of films like this, like Edge of Tomorrow, like Blade Runner, that kind of thing, where we do have a soundscape that's set up in the future that allows us to do fantastical things, but still has to be within this boundary of realistic expectations. That's when really cool creativity can come out, and I was very, very happy with. Even though the score was a little bit generic. Quite honestly, they use the same thing that they did in, like, you know, Nolan films and, like, Alien films, where it's like da da dun 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 dun. I mean, like, that's the usual thing. You could definitely see, like, the nods to, like, Jurassic Park with, like, the little like talon thing that Forrester is able to get, and the fact that he killed the big bad with the Velociraptor nail was super good. But, like, there was definitely, like, some tried and true musical stings that could have been taken directly from Indiana Jones, the Jurassic movie stuff or whatever, but the practical Foley and, like, the real yeah, for sure. That's what made me happy. Even though the white spikes absolutely are just from a sound design perspective, they're mixing the xenomorphs from Aliens and the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, and that's what you get when it comes to sounds.
Sure.
But still, very well done.
I have an ending thought.
What's that?
That I'm really disappointed that the cars in the future have not evolved.
Still on wheels.
Just saying. I'm just saying.
And with that fine thought, we're going to go ahead and call it a night, everybody. Thank you so very much for taking a minute to listen to us. Once more, we want to put it out there. If you are, working in order to fight the plague, we are one step closer to getting out of this thing, and we're so very happy to be able to do what we can to maybe make your day a little bit easier. But if you happen to be on the front line, if you're providing food, providing medical stuff, providing company, providing good vibes or whatever, in a world where we're not dealing with aliens, but we're definitely dealing with some challenges. We stand with you, and we salute you, and we appreciate what you're doing. Andrus, thank you so very much, as always, for giving me your very, very valuable time and just being honest. I love it when you get so passionate about this stuff, and I don't agree with you 100%. It's such a great conversation. I really do appreciate you. Thank you very much, man. It's always good to talk to you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And it's my pleasure. And also, guys, keep in mind, I mean, if you happen to like this movie, great. If not, great. If you happen to like the sound of our voices, let us know. Like, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, let us know how we're doing. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, whether you're hopping through time-fighting aliens or just trying to get a DoorDash order, remember this. We may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next time. We love you. Take care. Bye.